A light bulb has been burning continuously since 1901, 124 years without replacement, hanging in a California fire station, outlasting every person who ever installed it. You can watch it right now on a live webcam. This isn't folklore. Guinness certified it, the government acknowledged it, and the company that made it was systematically erased from history 10 years before every major manufacturer on Earth signed an agreement to ensure nothing like it would ever exist again. The bulb glows at 4 watts in Livermore, California, 15 feet above concrete. It survived 3 building relocations. When the fire department moved stations in 1976, they gave that bulb a full fire truck escort. An electrician stood waiting at the new location. 22 minutes of darkness. That's the only interruption in over a century. Everything around it has been replaced multiple times. The wiring, the building materials, even the webcams installed to prove it still works. The bulb itself refuses to die. A man named Adolphe Chaillet created it. Born in Paris in 1867 to a Swedish watchmaker and a Russian mother, he trained across German and French institutions, mastering chemistry and electrical engineering. In 1891, he sailed to America aboard a ship called the Teutonic. By 1896, he'd settled in Shelby, Ohio, a small farming town about to become an unexpected center of lighting innovation. The Shelby Electric Company formed with $100,000 in capital and 50 stockholders. Chaillet became technical manager. Within 18 months, local newspapers were covering their progress. By 1897, Electrical World magazine featured his lamp design, noting something unusual. The filament used what they called a secret chemical process. Chaillet never published the formula, he never licensed the technique. When he filed his patent in October 1900, he described the shape and glass design but deliberately omitted the filament composition itself. The thing that mattered most, he kept hidden, not as a patent that could expire or be acquired, as a trade secret that would die with him. Maybe that sounds paranoid. Except by 1899, the United States Treasury had already ordered 40,000 Shelby lamps. By 1902, the factory produced 10,000 bulbs daily with 900 employees, mostly women selected for their precise handiwork. Shelby's advertising didn't compete on price. Their tagline promised the longest life with the greatest economy, built to endure, not built to replace. Here's where skeptics usually object. The Centennial bulb only glows at 4 watts now, down from its original 60. Maybe it survives because it barely functions. Maybe we only remember old products that lasted while forgetting thousands that failed. Survivorship bias explains a lot of nostalgic thinking about the past, except researchers tested this theory directly. Deborah Katz, a physics professor at the Naval Academy, led a study on Shelby bulbs. Her team couldn't examine the Centennial bulb itself without risking destruction, so they tested identical models from the same era using laser measurement. What they discovered wasn't survivorship bias. Chaillet's filament measured 8 times thicker than modern incandescent filaments. 8 times. And it behaved opposite to standard tungsten at the molecular level. When tungsten heats up, it resists electricity more. Chaillet's carbon filament conducted more electricity as temperature increased, completely inverse physics. A student researcher named Justin Felgar published these findings in 2010. Even the Mythbusters team investigated and couldn't fully reverse engineer the manufacturing process. Whatever Chaillet developed in that Ohio factory wasn't incrementally better. It operated on fundamentally different principles, and he made certain the formula never appeared in any accessible document. While Shelby Electric grew, General Electric had been quietly consolidating the American lighting industry since the 1890s. In 1901, smaller manufacturers formed an alliance called the National Electric Lamp Association to compete against GE's dominance. Shelby joined, seemingly protecting their independence, but a federal court would later reveal that GE had secretly purchased 75% of the alliance's stock from the beginning. The independent coalition opposing General Electric was controlled by General Electric the entire time. Around 1903, the alliance acquired Shelby Electric. Through layers of shell ownership, Chaillet's company now belonged to the giant they'd tried to resist. When courts ordered the alliance dissolved in 1911, GE simply absorbed every member company directly. On March 19, 1912, the Shelby Electric Company officially ceased to exist. GE opened a massive facility in Cleveland and relocated operations there. By 1914, not a single lamp came from the Shelby factory. By 1919, the building had been converted for tractor manufacturing. The name Shelby Electric vanished entirely from the lighting industry. The people who built it didn't fare much better. William Skiles, company president and U.S. representative, died in 1904 at age 54. John Fish, co-founder who'd risen to president of the entire alliance, died in 1909 at approximately 44. John Whiteside, the superintendent, died in 1926 at 55. And Adolphe Chaillet? Records suggest he worked at a lamp factory in Mexico City from 1904 to 1914. The Mexican Revolution forced him back to the United States. Then he disappeared from documentation. Some sources say he died shortly after 1914, around age 47. The exact date remains uncertain, the circumstances unclear. People die young, revolutions disrupt industries, epidemics claim lives regardless of profession. I'm not proposing conspiracy around individual deaths. What I am documenting is the systematic erasure of knowledge, the filament composition, the manufacturing technique, the chemical process that enabled a bulb to burn for over a century. None of it survived in any recoverable form. A Naval Academy physics professor attempted reverse engineering in 2010. She couldn't crack it. The patent office holds Chaillet's paperwork. The critical information isn't there. Whatever he understood about carbon and electricity vanished with him. 10 years later, something unprecedented occurred. December 23, 1924, Geneva, Switzerland. Representatives from every major light bulb manufacturer on Earth convened in one room. Osram from Germany, Philips from the Netherlands, Tungsram from Hungary, Compagnie des Lampes from France, Associated Electrical Industries from Britain, Tokyo Electric from Japan, General Electric from the United States, participating through international subsidiaries. The same General Electric that had absorbed Shelby Electric 12 years prior. They established the Phoebus cartel, named after the Greek god of light, registered as a legal Swiss corporation. The stated purpose was standardization and efficiency. Internal records that surfaced decades later revealed the actual mission: ensure no light bulb sold anywhere on Earth lasted beyond 1,000 hours. Average bulb lifespan at that time, 2,500 hours. Their objective was cutting that number by more than half. They constructed a testing laboratory in Switzerland. Member factories were required to submit sample bulbs for inspection. If a factory's products exceeded 1,050 hours, they faced fines, half a Swiss franc for every 100 hours over the limit. They didn't penalize companies for manufacturing defective bulbs. They penalized them for making bulbs that lasted too long. Engineers who dedicated entire careers to extending bulb life now received orders to make products fail faster. They succeeded. By 1934, average lifespan had plummeted from 1,800 hours to just over 1,200. No factory on Earth produced bulbs exceeding 1,500 hours. At peak operation, the Phoebus cartel controlled approximately 90% of global light bulb production. The agreement was designed to continue until 1955. It collapsed in 1940 only because World War II made international coordination impossible. But the 1,000-hour standard persisted. Long after cartel dissolution, every manufacturer worldwide continued building to those specifications. The standard became normalized industry practice. When U.S. courts found General Electric guilty of violating the Sherman Antitrust Act in the early 1950s, it barely registered publicly. By then, nobody remembered light bulbs had ever lasted longer. There's a phrase that keeps returning as I trace this timeline. They didn't suppress a superior product, they made an inferior one mandatory. The light bulb wasn't the final application of this strategy. In 1939, DuPont released nylon stockings described as nearly indestructible. Women reportedly used them to tow cars. Demand was so intense that stores experienced what newspapers term nylon riots. Then DuPont identified the problem. If stockings never deteriorate, women never purchase replacements. They sent chemists back with one directive: make them weaker. Subsequent versions tore easily. A French consumer study by the organization Halte à l'obsolescence programmée found that 72% of modern tights fail within an average of 6 wears. This wasn't accidental degradation, it was deliberate reversal of progress. Here's what most overlook. DuPont acquired controlling stake in General Motors in 1921. The same corporation that weakened its own stockings also pioneered annual car design changes to make previous models feel outdated. Same ownership, same philosophy, applied across completely different industries simultaneously. One detail from the Shelby timeline has lingered with me. When GE absorbed the company, Shelby's sales division wasn't immediately eliminated. It was rebranded as the Empire Lamp Division and relocated to Buffalo, New York, the same city Chaillet had moved to after leaving Shelby in 1901. That division operated until April 1st, 1925. The Phoebus cartel formed on December 23, 1924. The final organizational trace of Chaillet's company was erased within months of the cartel's creation. The door closed and the lock changed in one motion. Consider what you replace in your own home. Light bulbs, appliances, chargers, cables, phone batteries barely holding charge after 2 years. Washing machines your grandmother operated for 30 years, replaced by models struggling past 7. Products your grandparents' generation purchased once and used for decades, you replace every few years. You've been told this occurs because technology advances rapidly, because materials cost less, because markets offer more options at lower prices. Some of that holds truth, but there's another explanation equally documented, equally proven in court, equally visible in corporate archives unsealed decades afterward. Products are designed to fail, not because they must, because a product that lasts is a customer lost. The Phoebus cartel was the first formalization of this philosophy, enforced with fines applied across an entire global industry. It worked so effectively, it became the template. Cars, clothing, electronics. The principle remained consistent. Never let a product outlast a consumer's willingness to replace it. The Centennial Light is still burning. You can verify this yourself. It hangs in Fire Station Number 6, 4550 East Avenue, Livermore, California. There's a live webcam. There's a committee that maintains it. A partnership between the fire department, the Livermore Heritage Guild, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories, and Sandia National Laboratories. The bulb has its own website. It's been featured on network television, in documentary films, in newspapers worldwide. Everyone marvels at the bulb. Almost nobody asks about the man who made it. Adolphe Chaillet knew something about carbon and glass and electricity that we can't replicate today. He protected that knowledge so thoroughly that even his own patent doesn't contain it. He watched the industry consolidate around him. He watched his company get absorbed. Whatever he carried in his head went with him when he disappeared from the record. The bulb doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't care about cartels or patents or corporate acquisition strategies. It's been doing the only thing it was ever designed to do for 124 years, glowing quietly in a fire station in California. Proof that something better existed, proof that it was taken away, and proof that whoever took it couldn't kill the evidence entirely. The question that won't leave me isn't how it still works. The question is why it was the last one they ever let anyone buy. Think about the sequence. Chaillet creates a bulb that lasts indefinitely. His company gets absorbed into General Electric through a shell corporation he didn't know existed. The factory closes, the technology vanishes. 10 years later, every major manufacturer on Earth sits in a room in Geneva and agrees that no bulb will ever last more than 1,000 hours again. They don't just agree informally, they create a testing laboratory, they enforce fines. They systematically reduce the lifespan of every bulb produced anywhere on the planet. That's not market forces. That's not natural evolution. That's deliberate reversal. And it worked so perfectly that when you walk into a store today and buy a light bulb, you expect it to fail. You budget for replacement. The idea that a bulb could last your entire lifetime sounds absurd, but 120 years ago, that's exactly what Chaillet delivered. The pattern repeats because it works. Create the superior product, let it prove itself. Then acquire the company, shut down production, and ensure nothing like it reaches the market again. DuPont did it with nylon, General Motors did it with streetcars, buying up electric transit systems in dozens of American cities, and replacing them with buses that required constant fuel purchases. The playbook is consistent because the outcome is profitable. Here's what disturbs me most. We've been conditioned to accept this as normal. When your phone battery degrades after 2 years, you don't question whether it was designed that way. You just buy a new phone. When your appliances fail just outside warranty, you assume that's the natural lifespan. When products your grandparents used for decades now last a fraction of that time, you're told it's because modern manufacturing is cheaper, faster, more efficient. But efficiency for whom? The Centennial Light has required 0 replacements, 0 maintenance beyond keeping it plugged in, 0 resources beyond the initial manufacturing. How many bulbs have been produced, shipped, sold, and discarded in the same time frame? How many tons of materials? How much energy in manufacturing? How much waste in landfills? The bulb hanging in Livermore represents the road not taken, not because the technology was impossible, because it was too possible, too durable, too permanent. A product that solved the problem completely was a problem for an economy built on replacement cycles. You can watch it right now. The webcam is public. It's been streaming for years. Thousands of people have verified it. The Guinness Book of World Records certified it. Ripley's investigated it. Scientists have studied it. Nobody disputes that it's real. What they dispute is whether it matters. Some will say this is just nostalgia, that old things seem better because we only remember the ones that survived, that modern products offer more features, more options, better performance for the price. And there's truth in that. Your smartphone does things Shelley couldn't have imagined, but it also dies in 2 years by design, not by accident. By design, the Centennial Light doesn't do anything except glow. It can't dim. It can't change colors. It can't connect to Wi-Fi. It just burns. And it's been burning since 1901, longer than anyone reading this has been alive, longer than anyone's grandparents were alive. It predates the Wright brothers' first flight. It predates the Model T. It predates both world wars. It's still burning. And the only reason we know it exists is because someone decided it was worth preserving, not as a product, as evidence. Evidence that something different was possible, something that didn't require endless consumption. Something built to last not until the warranty expired, but indefinitely. That's what they tried to erase. Not just a light bulb. The proof that permanence was achievable. The bulb isn't a miracle. It's not defying physics. It's not running on some mystical energy source. It's a product built the way products used to be built before someone calculated that failure was more profitable than permanence. Chalet didn't set out to expose anything. He just made something that worked, and in doing so, he created evidence that would outlast every attempt to bury his achievement. The cartel destroyed the competition, the courts found the violations, the history books moved on, but the bulb kept burning. You can dismiss this as a quirk of history, an interesting anomaly, a fun fact for trivia night, or you can recognize it for what it actually represents. Physical proof that the products failing in your home right now aren't failing because that's how long they can last. They're failing because that's how long they're allowed to last. Every time you replace something that shouldn't need replacing, you're participating in a system that was formalized in a room in Geneva a century ago. A system that decided durability was bad for business. A system that's still running. The Centennial Light doesn't prove there was some golden age when everything was built better. It proves that when profit depends on replacement, replacement becomes inevitable, not through market forces, through coordination, through enforcement, through fines levied against factories that made their products work too well. That bulb has been glowing in California for 124 years, not because someone keeps fixing it, because nobody's been able to break it. And the knowledge of how to make another one died with the man who wouldn't write it down.